You are a young woman in feudal Japan, chosen for a path few understand. Your life is a tapestry of quiet strength, unyielding duty, and the search for solace within gilded cages. This is your journey from humble beginnings to a life shaped by powerful currents, filled with subtle joys and profound sacrifices. If you like what I do, please like and subscribe. Now put on your headphones, pull up the blanket, take a deep breath, and relax.
The scent of damp earth and the distant lowing of an ox were your earliest companions. You were born into a small, weathered farmhouse, its straw roof a thin barrier against the biting winds of winter and the relentless summer sun. Your family, humble farmers, toiled ceaselessly, their hands calloused, their backs bent from generations of honest labor. Your childhood was a symphony of simple rhythms, the rustle of rice shoots in the paddies, the splash of water as buckets were filled from the well, the comforting hum of your mother's quiet songs as she prepared meals. Each day was a testament to survival, a constant dance with the seasons in the unforgiving land. Food was never plentiful, but always cherished. You learned early to appreciate every grain of rice, every meager fish from the stream. Your clothes were patched and worn, passed down through siblings, but they were warm and clean, a testament to your mother's diligent care. You watched your older siblings join your parents in the fields, their bodies growing strong and tired. You understood, even as a small child, the unspoken burden of debt, the ever-present threat of a poor harvest, or a sudden tax increase that could plunge your family deeper into hardship. Unlike children in modern times who might know playgrounds or formal schooling, your classroom was the sun-drenched field, your teachers the elements, and the tireless example of your family. You learned resilience, the value of cooperation, and the quiet dignity of hard work. Your days were filled with small chores, gathering firewood, tending the chickens, helping your mother grind rice. Your hands, though small, learned the rhythm of simple tasks, developing a quiet competence that would serve you in unexpected ways later in life. Evenings were spent by the hearth, the flickering fire casting dancing shadows on the walls. You listened to your father's stories of the village, of the passing samurai, and of the distant lord who held sway over your lives, a figure of remote power and authority. You rarely ventured beyond the village, and the world outside its familiar boundaries was a realm of distant whispers and rumors. The castle, a grand silhouette on the horizon, felt like a distant dream, a world entirely separate from your own humble existence. Despite the hardships, there was a quiet beauty in your life. The sight of cherry blossoms painting the hills in spring, the sound of crickets in the humid summer nights, the shared warmth of your family around the fire, these were your true treasures. You absorbed the lessons of humility and endurance from your parents, lessons born of necessity and tradition. You were a small cog in the vast machine of feudal society, your destiny seemingly tied to the endless cycle of planting and harvesting year after year.
As your adolescence began to unfold, a subtle change emerged within you. Your once childish features softened, your movements gained a new grace, and your eyes, often downcast in humility, held a quiet, captivating luminosity. You were blossoming, unknowingly. It was during a market day, a rare treat that allowed you to escape the fields for a few hours, that it happened. You were helping your mother sell vegetables, your face flushed from the sun, a simple scarf covering your hair. The market hummed with life. Amidst the vibrant chaos, a retainer of the local lord, a man of sharp eyes and formal demeanor, paused before your stall. He wasn't interested in your vegetables. His gaze, direct and assessing, rested upon you, causing a blush to rise to your cheeks. He spoke briefly with your father, his voice low and authoritative. You couldn't hear the exact words, but you saw your father's back stiffen. Then a slow, hesitant nod. A cold knot formed in your stomach, a premonition of change. Later that evening, your father explained, "The Lord's household sought new companions, and your beauty had been noted. It was an opportunity, a way to perhaps alleviate the family's crushing debts, a path out of endless toil." You understood the gravity of the decision. For a daughter of a poor farmer, this was a rare, if unsettling, chance. There was no question of refusal. Your family's needs were paramount, and your personal desires were secondary. Your mother held you close that night, her tears silent, her embrace both comforting and filled with a sorrowful resignation. She spoke of courage and honor, of making the best of the path chosen for you, lessons in quiet fortitude. The thought of leaving your familiar world, your family, for the grand unknown realm of the Lord's castle was terrifying. It was akin to a modern teenager being sent away for a prestigious scholarship, but without the personal choice or future independence. You packed your meager belongings, a change of clothes, a small carved wooden doll, a few strands of dried flowers your mother had given you. Each item was a tangible link to the life you were about to leave behind, a simple past. The next morning, as the sun painted the sky with streaks of rose and gold, you left your home. You looked back once at the small, familiar farmhouse, your family standing silent at the doorway, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and profound sadness.
The journey to the Lord's estate was short but transformative. You traveled in a closed palanquin, the rhythmic sway a constant reminder of your changed circumstances. The world outside, once open and familiar, was now viewed through narrow slits, a world you were entering, yet paradoxically leaving. Upon arrival, the sheer scale of the compound overwhelmed you. High walls, imposing gates, and buildings far grander than any you had ever seen. The air was different here, scented with rich timbers, fine incense, and the subtle perfume of unfamiliar flowers. You were led through silent corridors, past servants who moved with a quiet efficiency. Their eyes, if they met yours, were unreadable. Every step deeper into the estate was a step further away from the life you knew, into a realm of unseen rules and unspoken expectations. You were taken to the women's quarters, a separate, secluded world within the grand complex. Here, you met other young women, some new like you, some already established. Their gazes held a mixture of curiosity, assessment, and a hint of wearied knowledge. A stern elderly lady, responsible for the household's inner workings, greeted you with a polite but formal bow. Her eyes missed nothing. She explained the basic rules, the importance of silence, obedience, and impeccable conduct at all times. Your new room was small but clean, with soft tatami mats and a sliding shoji screen that overlooked a small inner courtyard. It was far more comfortable than your farmhouse, yet it felt strangely confining, a gilded cage rather than a humble home. The silence of the quarters was profound, broken only by the rustle of kimonos or the soft murmur of hushed voices. It was a stark contrast to the lively, boisterous sounds of your family's farm, a quiet that demanded immediate adaptation. You felt a deep sense of displacement, a longing for the familiar faces of your mother and father. This new environment was elegant, yes, but it was also cold in its formality, a place where warmth was to be sought, not freely given. You began to observe everything, learning by watching, how the older concubines moved, how they spoke, the subtle gestures that conveyed status or displeasure. It was like learning a new language, one of unspoken signs and careful decorum. You understood, with a dawning clarity, that your past life, your identity as a farmer's daughter, was now behind you. You were simply a new presence in the Lord's household, a blank canvas upon which new expectations would be painted.
The first weeks in the Lord's household were a whirlwind of new sensations and subtle adjustments. You were assigned to minor duties within the women's quarters, helping with the preparation of teas, arranging flowers, or assisting with the elaborate dressing of the formal wife. You were given new kimonos, made of finer silk than you had ever touched, and instructed on how to wear them with grace. The transformation was striking. You barely recognized the elegant reflection that gazed back from the polished surface of your copper mirror. One afternoon, you were summoned to the Lord's private chambers. Your heart pounded with a mixture of fear and a fragile, nascent hope. This was the moment of your formal introduction, the true beginning of your role in His household. The Lord was older than you had imagined, His face kind, His eyes discerning. He spoke softly, inquiring about your journey, your comfort. His words were few, but His gaze lingered, sparking a flicker of warmth within your apprehensive heart. He treated you with a quiet courtesy, a gentle deference that was entirely unexpected. He offered you a delicate sweet, a rare delicacy, and spoke briefly of the beauty of the cherry blossoms outside, a shared moment of simple connection. In that initial encounter, you felt a brief, intoxicating flutter of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, this life would be different from the cold, formal existence you had imagined. Perhaps affection, even love, could blossom here. You imagined a life where you might gain His favor, where your existence held a deeper purpose than mere duty. It was a feeling akin to a modern job applicant hoping for a promotion, believing that hard work and dedication will lead to genuine appreciation and advancement. The other concubines observed this interaction with subtle glances. Their expressions were unreadable, a blend of polite curiosity and a silent, assessing calculation. You sensed the intricate web of relationships, the constant undercurrent of competition. For a fleeting period, His attention seemed to favor you. He would occasionally send for you, engaging in quiet conversation, listening to your soft words with an attentive ear. These moments were precious, validating your presence. This initial comfort, this brief glimmer of a special connection, offered a fragile sense of security. It was a temporary reprieve from the harsh realities of your station, a small window into a potential future filled with more than just obligation. The initial hope, though sweet, soon gave way to the rigid realities of life within the Lord's household. Every action, every word, every gesture was governed by an unspoken code of etiquette, a complex dance of hierarchy and deference. You quickly learned the meticulous rituals of daily life, the correct way to slide a shoji screen, the precise angle for a bow, the subtle nuances of speech depending on who you addressed. Errors were not tolerated, though rarely punished overtly. The formal wife, the lady of the household, was the ultimate authority within the women's quarters. Her presence commanded respect. Her word was law. Her eyes, though often distant, held a keen awareness of everything that transpired.
You became acutely aware of the delicate balance of power, the silent competition among the other concubines for the lord's fleeting attention. It was a subtle war, waged with polite smiles and carefully chosen words, a constant, unspoken tension. Each meal, each tea ceremony, each moment of leisure was a performance. You learned to suppress your own desires, your own thoughts, presenting only the image of a perfectly composed, obedient companion, much like a public figure constantly aware of scrutiny. The formal nature extended even to personal interactions. True friendships were rare and often fraught with risk. You learned to be guarded, to choose your words carefully, to trust few within the confines of the inner court. The physical world of the household became a familiar yet increasingly confining space. The same corridors, the same gardens, the same faces. Your world shrunk, defined by the walls that separated you from the outside world you once knew. You learned to find comfort in small routines, in the quiet precision of your daily tasks. These moments of quiet focus provided a mental refuge from the constant vigilance required to navigate the intricate social landscape. The absence of genuine, unburdened conversation was a subtle ache. You longed for the simple, honest exchanges of your village life, the freedom to speak your mind without careful consideration of every implication. This rigid etiquette, though stifling at times, also instilled in you an extraordinary sense of discipline and self-control. You learned to observe, to listen, to understand the unsaid, skills that sharpened your perception in profound ways.
Your days became structured by the pursuit of refinement. You were immersed in the traditional arts, deemed essential for any woman seeking to grace a lord's household. These were not hobbies, but duties, performed with meticulous attention to detail. Despite your growing accomplishments in the arts, the air within the women's quarters remained thick with unspoken competition. The other concubines, some older and more established, viewed your rising favor with a mix of veiled smiles and watchful eyes. The formal wife, the lady of the household, maintained a dignified distance. Her authority was absolute, her gaze piercing. You sensed her unspoken awareness of every interaction, every subtle shift in the Lord's attention. Each gesture of favor, a special gift from the Lord, a prolonged conversation, became a silent marker in the complex hierarchy. Such moments were met with polite congratulations from others, but you felt the cold currents of jealousy beneath the surface. Whispers, subtle and swift, often traveled through the corridors, rumors about a past misstep, a perceived slight, or a moment of perceived weakness. You learned to ignore them, to maintain your composure, to let nothing outwardly affect you. It was a constant psychological dance, much like navigating a competitive workplace today, where alliances shift and subtle power plays are constant. You learned to be observant, to understand the unspoken language of the court. You witnessed the quiet despair of concubines whose beauty faded or whose favor waned. Their rooms grew quieter, their attendants fewer, their hopes dimming like embers in a dying fire. It was a stark lesson in impermanence. You learned to be careful with your words, to avoid any statement that could be misconstrued or used against you. Silence, you discovered, was often your strongest shield, preserving your inner world from external judgment.
There were moments of genuine sadness for the loneliness you observed in others, and sometimes even within yourself. Despite the proximity, true connection felt elusive, overshadowed by the constant need for vigilance and self-preservation. This environment honed your emotional resilience. You learned to manage your own feelings, to present a serene facade even when your heart was troubled. It was a necessary adaptation, a survival skill in a world of rigid expectations. The competition was not always overt, but it was always present, a constant undercurrent that shaped every interaction. You existed in a world where your standing was precarious, always subject to the shifting tides of the Lord's favor and the whims of others.
Beyond the endless etiquette and the delicate dance of courtly arts, a more fundamental expectation loomed: the need to bear children. Your primary value, the very reason for your presence, was rooted in your capacity to continue the Lord's lineage. The pressure was silent but pervasive. You heard the hushed conversations about other concubines who had failed to conceive, their subsequent decline in status, their quiet relegation to less significant duties. Their fate was a stark warning. Each cycle brought with it a renewed sense of anxiety. You longed to fulfill this crucial duty, not just for your own security, but for your family back in the village, whose prospects were tied to your success within the Lord's household. You observed the formal wife, who had given the Lord daughters but no sons. Her quiet suffering, the subtle tension in her presence, underscored the paramount importance of a male heir in this era, a burden you now felt keenly. The medicinal teas, the rituals, the prayers offered to the gods for fertility, you embraced them all with a quiet desperation. You longed for the physical confirmation that you had fulfilled your purpose, that you had secured your place. Conversations within the women's quarters often revolved around pregnancies, births, and the health of newborns. It was a constant reminder of the expectations that weighed heavily on all of you, an unspoken competition for future influence. You understood that your future, your comfort in old age, the elevation of your humble family, all hinged upon this singular biological imperative. It was a stark contrast to modern life, where a woman's value is not solely tied to her reproductive capacity. The physical intimacy with the Lord, while respectful, was often detached, serving a purpose rather than born of passion. You learned to separate your emotions, to fulfill your duty with a quiet composure, maintaining your inner privacy. There were moments of profound loneliness, wishing for a different path, a life where love and companionship were the sole drivers of intimacy. Yet you suppressed these thoughts, focusing on the ultimate goal, a healthy male heir. This constant tension, this quiet anxiety, became a subtle undercurrent in your daily life. You carried the weight of expectation, praying each day for the blessing that would secure your position and fulfill your most important duty.
Then, a new sensation, a subtle shift in your body, a tender awareness that hinted at a change. You cautiously hoped, dared not to speak of it, fearing to jinx the fragile possibility that fluttered within you. The household attendants, ever observant, soon noticed. A hushed excitement rippled through the women's quarters. The formal wife's gaze, though unreadable, held a new intense focus upon you. The air was charged with anticipation. As the months progressed, your condition became undeniable. You were moved to a more secluded chamber, receiving special care, nourishing foods, and the constant attention of experienced midwives. You were now the vessel of immense hope. The labor was long and arduous, a primal struggle that tested your endurance beyond anything you had ever known. You clung to the thought of your family, of your duty, enduring each wave of pain with a fierce, quiet resolve. And then a cry, not yours, but the powerful, unmistakable wail of a newborn. The midwives exclaimed with joy, their voices filled with relief. "A son!" they announced, their words echoing through the chamber like a divine pronouncement. A profound wave of exhaustion, mingled with an indescribable surge of triumph, washed over you. You had fulfilled your purpose. You had given the Lord a male heir, securing the lineage and elevating your own precarious position. The infant, wrapped in soft silk, was placed gently in your arms. His tiny face, his miniature hands clutching your finger, filled your heart with an overwhelming flood of maternal love, a fierce, protective instinct that was entirely new. The Lord himself visited, his face alight with rare joy. He praised your fortitude, his eyes expressing a deep gratitude. The formal wife, too, offered a polite congratulations, her expression softer than you had ever seen it. Your status within the household soared overnight. Gifts of fine fabric and special foods arrived. Your family back in the village would benefit indirectly from this elevation, a tangible reward for your sacrifice and success. The birth of your son was a pivotal moment, a fleeting triumph in a life of controlled emotions. For a brief period, you were not just a concubine, but a mother, a vital link in the Lord's future, a source of immense pride and quiet happiness.
Your joy in your newborn son was immense, yet brief. The customs of the time dictated that a concubine's son, especially an heir, would be raised by the formal wife. This was to ensure his proper upbringing within the primary line of the family. You understood the logic, the necessity of it for the stability of the Lord's house. Yet the emotional separation was a quiet torment. You longed to nurture him, to witness his first steps, to hear his babbling words every day. He was taken from your care shortly after his birth, brought to the formal wife's chambers. You were permitted occasional visits, brief moments to gaze upon him, to touch his soft cheek, to murmur quiet blessings. You watched from a distance as he grew, as tutors began his education in reading, writing, and the martial arts. He was destined for a life of duty and leadership, a path entirely separate from the secluded world you inhabited. He would sometimes visit your chambers, a small child then, his eyes wide with curiosity. You cherished these moments, sharing simple stories, playing quiet games, trying to impart what wisdom you could in those precious, limited times. As he grew older, his visits became less frequent, his attention drawn to his studies and the demanding life of a young samurai. He was becoming his own person, shaped by different influences, moving towards his predetermined future. You understood that your purpose now was to support his journey from afar, to offer silent prayers for his success and well-being. Your love for him remained fierce, but it was a love held at a distance, a guiding light rather than a daily presence. This emotional detachment was a profound challenge, a constant reminder of the sacrifices you had made and continued to make for your family's status and his future. It was a unique form of motherly love, defined by restraint. You saw echoes of yourself in his quiet determination, in his disciplined approach to his studies. A part of you lived on in him, a quiet legacy that brought a subtle comfort amidst the pang of separation. His future, his advancements within the Lord's house became your new focus. His success was your success, his honor your honor. You lived vicariously through his achievements, hoping his path would secure your own twilight years.
Despite having given the Lord a son, your direct influence on the household's political and administrative decisions remained minimal. The formal wife, with her lineage and established position, held the true authority within the inner court. You were a respected presence, certainly, and your son's existence granted you a degree of security. However, you were not privy to the strategic discussions, the financial planning, or the intricate alliances that shaped the Lord's domain. Your role was to maintain harmony within the women's quarters, to provide a pleasant and cultured environment for the Lord, and to raise your son, from a distance, according to the strictures of his future role. Your voice was rarely sought on weighty matters. You learned to observe and listen, gleaning information from the hushed conversations of attendants or the subtle changes in the formal wife's demeanor. You understood the power of unspoken knowledge, even if you could not act upon it directly. This limited influence was a quiet frustration at times. You possessed insights, observations, and perhaps even wisdom that could contribute, but your station dictated silence and deference to the established hierarchy. You recognized that your position was defined by your biological success and your cultural refinement, not by your capacity for direct leadership or strategic thought. It was a world where gender roles were rigidly defined, unlike many societies today. You rarely left the women's quarters, and when you did, it was typically for a formal ceremony or a brief escorted visit to a temple. Your world was contained within the castle walls. Your understanding of the outside world gleaned from filtered reports. This confinement meant you had little direct interaction with the common people, the farmers and merchants you had once known. Your connection to their lives became more abstract, a responsibility understood through the Lord's governance. You sought influence through your subtle actions, through the quiet strength of your presence, and through the respect you earned from those around you. It was a softer power, less direct, but no less significant in its own way. You learned to accept your role, to find satisfaction within its boundaries. Your sphere of influence might be small, but within it you cultivated grace, harmony, and a quiet dignity that was entirely your own, a testament to inner strength.
Your days within the Lord's household settled into a quiet routine, largely confined to the women's quarters. This secluded world, separated from the bustling affairs of the castle, became your entire existence. Your mornings began with quiet meditation, a moment to center your spirit before the demands of the day. You would then attend to your personal grooming, followed by a simple breakfast taken in solitude or with a few trusted attendants. The hours were filled with the meticulous care of your living space, the arrangement of flowers, and the practice of your arts.
You might spend time with your koto, its melodies filling the quiet rooms, or compose haikus in a small private journal. Conversations were often subdued, focused on domestic matters, the health of children, or the subtle shifts in courtly favor. You learned to read the unspoken meanings behind polite smiles and carefully chosen words. The women's quarters, though elegant, felt like a self-contained universe. You rarely saw men other than the lord or specific authorized male attendants. Your interactions were primarily with other women, each navigating their own delicate positions. You understood the security this confinement offered, protecting you from the dangers of the outside world, from the chaos of conflict, or the harshness of common life. Yet it also brought a profound sense of isolation, a yearning for wider horizons. Unlike modern women, who might pursue careers or travel freely, your world was defined by the walls around you. Your office was your chamber, your colleagues, the other concubines and attendants. Your commute was a walk down a quiet corridor. You watched the seasons change through the meticulously crafted screens, the cherry blossoms in spring, the fireflies in summer, the russet leaves of autumn. Nature was a constant, if distant, companion, offering beauty through a filtered lens. Meals were served in a precise manner, with delicate dishes that were a far cry from the simple fare of your youth. Yet, you never forgot the taste of plain rice or fresh vegetables, a quiet memory of your humble origins. This quiet, contained existence became your norm. You adapted, finding a rhythm within the walls, transforming confinement into a space for introspection and cultivation of your inner world, a life of quiet endurance.
Within the quiet confines of your world, you sought and found solace in subtle pleasures. These were not grand gestures, but small, personal moments that brought a flicker of joy and a sense of connection to something beyond your duties. You spent hours tending a small, private garden patch outside your chambers, a hidden gem within the estate. You carefully nurtured a few delicate irises and a miniature maple, their growth mirroring your own quiet resilience. Composing poetry became your most cherished refuge. You would sit by your window, observing the moon, the drifting clouds, or the patterns of rain, translating these fleeting observations into short, poignant verses in your private journal. The music of your koto, played in the quiet hours when others slept, was a personal dialogue. The melodies were your confessions, your hopes, your unvoiced longings, expressed through the gentle strumming of strings, a release for your soul. You found joy in the meticulous preparation of tea for yourself, each step a meditative act. The whisking of the matcha, the warmth of the bowl in your hands, the delicate aroma. It was a moment of mindful presence, a quiet ritual. Observing the intricate details of a painted scroll, the brushstrokes of a master, or the delicate folds of an embroidered kimono, became a quiet appreciation for beauty. These artistic expressions offered a window into a world beyond your own. Sometimes your son would visit, and these were the most precious pleasures. You would sit with him, sharing a sweet, or listening to his stories of the outside world, cherishing the fragile moments of mother-child connection. The changing seasons, despite your confinement, offered a constant source of quiet wonder.
You found beauty in the first snowfall, the vibrant colors of autumn leaves, or the fresh green shoots of spring peeking through the earth. You learned to appreciate the subtle beauty in simplicity, the elegant curve of a branch, the gentle ripple of water in a stone basin. These small observations grounded you, connecting you to the larger cycles of life and nature. These subtle pleasures were your emotional anchors, tiny sparks of light in a world that often demanded restraint. They were your personal sanctuaries, allowing you to cultivate an inner richness that no external circumstance could diminish.
As the years progressed, the inevitable began to unfold. Younger concubines, fresh and vibrant, began to arrive at the Lord's household, their youthful beauty a stark reminder of the passage of time. The Lord's attention, once occasionally yours, began to shift. You observed the subtle changes. His visits to your chambers became less frequent, his gifts fewer, his conversations briefer. It was a slow, quiet receding of favor, like the tide gradually pulling away from the shore. The new companions brought with them a different energy, a youthful vivacity that was appealing to the Lord. You saw the same glimmer of initial hope in their eyes that you once held, a poignant echo of your own past. The other concubines, who had once subtly competed with you, now viewed you with a different expression, perhaps pity, perhaps a knowing understanding. You had entered the next phase of a concubine's life, the slow decline of active favor. Your once central role in the Lord's entertainment diminished. The koto melodies you played, the dances you performed, were now requested less often, replaced by the fresher talents of the new arrivals. Your artistic contributions were now more for yourself. This shifting favor was a common trajectory for concubines in feudal Japan, much like an aging celebrity in modern times seeing younger stars take their place. Your value, once tied to youthful charm and fertility, now rested more on your son's standing. You felt a quiet sadness, a natural human emotion of loss. It was not a bitter resentment, but a gentle melancholy for what once was, for the fleeting nature of attention and beauty. You focused on your son, his education, his growing presence in the outer court. Your quiet pride in his development became your new source of validation, a legacy that would endure beyond your own fading beauty. You began to spend more time in your garden, seeking comfort in its quiet serenity. The growth of each plant, the resilience of nature, offered a silent lesson in acceptance, in finding beauty in every stage of life. This period taught you deeper humility and acceptance. You recognized that your life was not entirely your own, and your worth was not solely defined by external validation. Your inner strength became your truest companion.
As your status quietly receded, an unexpected period of fragility began. You fell ill, a persistent fever and a cough that clung to you through the damp winter months. Your body, once resilient, felt suddenly vulnerable. The household physicians attended to you, administering traditional medicines, but your recovery was slow and halting. The illness sapped your strength, leaving you weak and often confined to your bed, your world shrinking further. During this time of sickness, you felt the precariousness of your position more acutely than ever. Without the Lord's active favor, your resources, though still provided, felt less assured. You relied on the kindness of your attendants. You longed for the simple, wholesome foods of your childhood, the comforting remedies your mother would prepare. The delicate teas and strict diets of the castle felt distant from the healing warmth you remembered. A quiet fear gnawed at you. What if your illness persisted? What if you became a burden, a shadow of your former self? The thought of being relegated, forgotten, was a chilling prospect, akin to losing one's job in old age today. Your son, though busy with his studies and duties, visited when he could, his young face etched with concern. His presence was a balm to your spirit, a reminder of the precious connection you shared, the reason for your enduring fight. You looked out at your small garden from your window, its plants dormant under the winter chill. You imagined the spring, the new growth, a silent promise of renewal that you hoped would extend to your own weakening body. The illness became a period of intense introspection. You pondered the fleeting nature of health, the fragility of life itself. You found a deeper appreciation for each breath, each moment of quiet peace. You understood that your battle was now an internal one, a fight for your own strength and resilience. You drew upon the same discipline that had guided you in the arts and court etiquette, applying it to your own recovery. Slowly, painstakingly, your strength began to return. The fever receded, the cough lessened. You emerged from the illness with a renewed sense of gratitude for life and a deeper understanding of your own inner fortitude.
As your health gradually returned, your focus shifted entirely to your son. His advancements within the Lord's household became your driving purpose, your greatest source of hope and validation. You lived vicariously through his journey. You listened intently to reports of his progress in his studies, his martial training, his interactions with other young samurai. Each positive report brought a quiet surge of pride, a confirmation that your sacrifices were bearing fruit. You offered him subtle advice when he visited, sharing insights about courtly politics, the importance of alliances, and the nuances of dealing with different personalities. Your experience, though from the shadows, was invaluable. You watched him grow into a disciplined and capable young man, embodying the virtues of a samurai. He was a reflection of your dreams, a testament to your quiet guidance, even from a distance. His future was now intrinsically linked to your own security in old age. His success meant that you would be cared for, respected, and not cast aside as your own youth and beauty inevitably faded. It was a profound dependency. You spent hours in quiet prayer for his well-being, for his wisdom, for his protection in a world that could be harsh and unforgiving. Your mother's love for him was a constant, powerful force within you. When he achieved a promotion or was entrusted with a new, significant duty, you felt a surge of joy akin to your own personal triumph. His achievements were your victories, celebrated in the quiet sanctity of your chambers. You understood that this was the path of many concubines, to invest all their hopes in their children, particularly their sons. It was a strategic as well as an emotional imperative, much like a modern parent investing all their resources in their child's future. His occasional visits became more structured, less frequent, filled with the weight of his growing responsibilities. Yet in his eyes you still saw the flicker of the child you had borne, the son who was your enduring connection. You accepted this distant relationship with a quiet understanding. Your influence was now indirect, a gentle guiding hand from afar, ensuring that your son continued to walk the path of honor and secure his rightful place.
As your son matured into a formidable samurai, his duties consumed more of his time. He was often away on campaigns, attending to the Lord's affairs in distant provinces, or engaged in rigorous training that kept him within the outer castle. His visits to your quarters, once eagerly anticipated, became rare occurrences, brief and formal. He would bow deeply, share a few words of update, and then depart, his mind already on his next responsibility. The emotional distance grew. You understood the demands of his position, the expectations placed upon him as the Lord's son. He was forging his own path, building his own reputation, and his focus had to be external, outward-looking. Yet a quiet loneliness settled over you. The intimate bond of his early childhood, the precious moments you had stolen, seemed like a distant dream, replaced by the polite formality of adulthood. You longed for the spontaneous laughter, the innocent questions, the simple comfort of his presence. But the strictures of the household and his growing duties made such connections impossible. This gradual loss of connection was a profound sorrow, a silent grieving for a bond that had been severed by circumstance and duty. It was a common experience for concubines, whose children were often taken from them for their upbringing. You observed him from afar during formal ceremonies or processions, a proud figure in his samurai armor. You felt a surge of pride, mingled with a pang of longing for the closeness that had once existed. You found solace in your artistic pursuits, in the melodies of your koto, in the quiet wisdom of your haikus. These private expressions became your companions, holding the unspoken emotions that had nowhere else to go. You understood that his duty to the Lord and to his future superseded all personal connections. Your role as his mother was now more spiritual than physical, a silent prayer for his prosperity and protection. You accepted this new reality with quiet dignity. The path you had chosen, or that had been chosen for you, demanded such sacrifices. You had fulfilled your part, and now you watched, with love and a touch of melancholy, as your son carved his own destiny.
With the passage of many years, your role within the Lord's household naturally transitioned. Your active duties lessened, and your once vibrant presence shifted to a quieter, more revered, but ultimately retired status. The decision for you to move to a quiet temple was presented gently, framed as an opportunity for spiritual contemplation and serene retirement. For many concubines, this was a common, often expected path in their later years. It was a bittersweet departure. You had spent decades within these walls. They had been your world, your sanctuary, and your cage. Leaving meant severing the last direct ties to the Lord's daily life, to the place where your son had grown. You packed your few cherished personal belongings, your koto, your poetry journals, a simple wooden carving from your childhood. Each item was a memory, a tangible link to the life you had lived within the castle's confines. Your son, now a respected samurai in his own right, visited you before your departure. His eyes, though holding maturity and duty, also conveyed a deep respect and quiet affection. He assured you of your continued care and comfort. The journey to the temple was a stark contrast to your arrival at the castle. No grand palanquin, but a simple, open carriage, allowing you to observe the passing landscape with an unfiltered gaze. The world felt larger, more real. The temple was nestled amidst quiet hills, surrounded by ancient trees and a serene garden. Its simple beauty offered an immediate sense of peace, a stark contrast to the opulence and hidden tensions of the castle. Your new living quarters were Spartan, yet clean and tranquil. A small room with tatami mats, a window overlooking a moss garden, and the constant sound of rustling leaves. It was a place for quiet reflection, for introspection. You spent your first days simply adjusting to the profound silence, the lack of courtly bustle. It felt like shedding a heavy cloak, releasing years of ingrained etiquette and constant vigilance, embracing a new, simpler existence. This retirement to the temple was not a punishment, but a societal custom, a final phase of life for women like yourself. It was a transition to a different kind of service, one of spiritual contemplation rather than earthly duty.
In the serene quietude of the temple, your days unfolded with a new, gentle rhythm. You spent hours in quiet meditation, allowing your mind to drift back through the decades, reflecting on the myriad experiences that had shaped your life. You remembered your humble beginnings, the scent of earth, the rough texture of your father's hands, the simple warmth of your mother's embrace. These early memories now seemed distant, yet profoundly grounding, a reminder of where you came from. The intensity of Sensei Kenji's lessons, the meticulous pursuit of artistic perfection, these memories brought a quiet smile. You realized how those disciplines had taught you self-control, resilience, and an appreciation for beauty amidst rigid forms. You thought of the castle, its grand halls and hidden passages, the constant dance of etiquette and power. It had been a gilded cage, yet it had also offered security, a place where your son could thrive, a complex tapestry of experience. The other concubines, their competitive glances, their hushed whispers, these faded into the background. You saw them now not as rivals, but as fellow travelers on a shared, difficult path, each seeking their own measure of solace. Most vividly, you recalled the overwhelming joy of your son's birth, the sheer relief and love that had flooded your being. That singular triumph, that moment of profound purpose, remained a beacon in your memory. You understood, with the clarity of old age, the profound sacrifices you had made, the bond with your family, the daily connection with your son, the freedom of your own choices. Yet you also saw the purpose in those sacrifices. The concept of mono no awara, the gentle melancholy of things, the bittersweet awareness of the impermanence of all things, resonated deeply. Life was a succession of fleeting moments, beautiful precisely because they did not last. You found peace in this solitude, a quiet acceptance of your fate. There was no need for external validation, no need to perform, only the quiet contemplation of a life lived, fully and completely, within its given parameters. Your spirit felt lighter, unburdened by past regrets or future anxieties. You had traversed your path with dignity, navigating its challenges with a quiet strength, and now you were ready to embrace the ultimate peace.
The final days arrived with the quiet grace of a fading autumn leaf. Your strength, though enduring, gently receded. The world outside your temple window blurred, becoming a soft wash of colors
and indistinct forms. You spent your moments in profound tranquility, the scent of the temple's incense a constant, comforting presence. Your breath grew softer, shallower, a quiet whisper in the serene chamber, marking your gentle transition. You heard the distant chanting of the monks, a soothing drone that blended with the rustle of leaves outside. It was a peaceful sound, guiding your spirit towards a realm beyond earthly concerns, a transition to profound quiet. Your son, now a respected lord, visited you one last time. He sat beside you, his hand gently clasped in yours, his presence a testament to your enduring connection. His eyes held both sorrow and a deep respect, a final farewell. You conveyed your silent blessings, your love for him, and your quiet pride in the man he had become. The words were few, the bond between you was clear, a mother's affection enduring beyond the confines of societal roles. You remembered the feeling of the sun on your face in the rice paddies, the feel of fine silk in your hands, the warmth of your child's tiny body in your arms. These sensations were not gone, but gently replayed in your mind's eye. The cherry blossoms, your constant companions throughout your life, appeared in your mind's eye, their vibrant petals scattering on a spring breeze, a symbol of beauty, transience, and the cyclical nature of all existence. There was no fear, only a deep sense of completion. You had fulfilled your duties, experienced profound joys and sorrows, and found solace in the quiet corners of your soul. Your journey had been long, purposeful, and unique. You felt a deep sense of belonging to the earth, to the ancestors, to the cycle of life and renewal. Your individual story was but a thread in the grand tapestry of human existence, now gently rejoining the whole. And then, as peacefully as a single petal drifting from a cherry tree, your spirit departed, leaving behind a body that had housed a life of quiet endurance, profound love, and unwavering dignity. Your journey found its final, serene rest. Your life, a vivid tapestry woven with honor and devotion, reached its peaceful conclusion. From a girl chosen for a demanding path to a resilient woman and a mother, you embraced each challenge with quiet strength. Your legacy, in the form of your son and the quiet wisdom you cultivated, stood as a testament to a life lived with profound purpose and graceful adaptation.